Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. Set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to, I believe, Kenny, this is the 30th show, is it not? 3-0 of the Don McKeag Show, where we try to educate, maybe we intimidate, alienate, I don't know, any other kind of consolidate. We don't imitate. No, we don't imitate Kenny. And Kenny Bukes is in the control room awaiting any calls. This is a call-in show, although it has not proven to be much of a call-in show. Why not break the thaw and or start the thaw and call in with positives or negatives, whatever you feel. We are on from 6 to 7 every Thursday. It's a tough hour, which is, I think, part of our situation in terms of calls. People are watching. We know that. We hear from them. But it's supper time. Maybe they're sitting in their chair having their supper and listening. I hope so. For those that might be new, I also have a radio show on Cape Cod on station WXTK, and it is on Saturdays from 11 to 1. I am a conservative. I am a recovering Democrat because it has become politically incorrect to be conservative in the Democratic Party that I once was a strong member of. Some don't like to hear that, but it is the truth by all standards that you want to look at. We're doing this show primarily, I am, to try to give another side to what is an overall bias in not only the communications we have, television, radio, newspapers, magazines, but also in our schools, unfortunately. I keep telling everyone just before they think I'm just anti-schools, I was a school teacher for 12 years, teacher and coach, taught English, loved it, loved the kids, still do. And I saw it happening 30 years ago, and it's there. And teachers don't like to hear it because there are many who do an admirable job in the classroom. However, those that are in the administration and those that are in the determination of curricula aren't doing a good job. And it's been proven in the dismal, I say dismal record of American students when held up to other countries. Depending on which poll you look at, we're between 16th and 19th in the world, and we pay 3 and 4 times as much for our kids to be educated as any of those other countries. What does the NEA say about it? What does the MTA say about it? What do teachers around here say about it? They get defensive. And they say it's because we have to take all the kids. We have to do this. We have to do that. We're not talking about private schools here. We're talking about public schools. And on top of it, the financial drain on the taxpayer is over the top. new buildings, raises when town budgets are stressed. And it all occurred because the Democratic Party successfully passed laws in which the school budget in towns is its own entity. I was a town meeting member in Barnstable for years, and you can't touch the schools anymore, even though school budgets, when I was there, always went through because it was about the kids. But that's just part of our problem. It's not our biggest problem now. We have lost so much, and I hate to always be the naysayer. By the way, though, before, what I wanted to say is this is our 30th show, Kenny, but it's also, this month will be Yogi Berra's 90th birthday. One of the all-time greats. Yeah, is he fabulous? You can't, when you come to a turn in the road, take it. That was one of them. Nobody goes to that restaurant anymore. It's too crowded. I mean, it goes on. The Yogi-isms. And just after I left the University of Massachusetts, his son, Dale, was a coach up in Amherst at the University of Massachusetts. Peter Townsend is also 70 this month, May 19th. Yogi's is the 12th. Bob Seger is 70. Roseanne Cash, Johnny Cash's daughter, is 60. Deborah Winger is going to be 60. Boy, you never see her anymore. And Martin Lawrence, who was great in that Bad Boys 3 and a couple of other movies. I have to just constantly come on the air just to hopefully get you sitting there thinking about it. Our priorities, our morals are just, I know I'm old now. I'm in my 70s, and now I guess I talk like our parents used to, but my word, we seem to have so much more to be concerned about. And remember, we are supposed to leave the world a better place for future generations. We're supposed to care about that for our children and our grandchildren. We're not supposed to just ignore the politics and ignore the changes that we don't agree with, Democrats who still think like I do. There are Democrats who do. They still vote Democrat, though, and therefore they never get any changes, and they see the values eroding. And I don't see any indication of it changing, but I'm going to try. I'm going to once again read my quote by Martin Luther in 1526, almost 500 years ago, after he'd taken on the Catholic Church, which was corrupt, not the religion. I keep reminding you, this is not a criticism of the Catholic religion. It is a criticism, as I am criticizing our country now. The leadership is what's the problem, not the form of government. And who gets elected and why. Well, anyway, Martin Luther, a devout priest who did not want to leave the church, but of course was excommunicated. In fact, he lived in threat of his life. That's how kind and compassionate the hierarchy in the Catholic Church were toward him. He said, cowardice asked the question, is it safe? Expediency asked the question, is it politic? Vanity asked the question, is it popular? But conscience asked the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But he or she must take that position because it is right. How many Americans today are taking a position because it's right? I'll tell you, in the political world, and remember, I'm not a Republican. I am a total independent. I vote for the best person, and I'm disgusted with the Republican Party who, after winning the midterm elections nationwide, doesn't understand why. They did not win it because Republicans voted for them. They won it because Democrats voted for them. Disillusioned, unhappy Democrats whose values are like mine were fed up with what's going on in the leadership. That's why. Those that have no, I ran for state rep in Dukes County down at Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, Falmouth, a little bit of Barnstable, and you can imagine as a Republican, former Democrat running as a Republican in that area with all the movies people and all the liberal leftists that inhabit the islands, I did not win, but I ran on my principles and I made friends and it was a great experience. However, this is what happened to Scott Brown, in my humble opinion, and it will happen to these Republicans today. The minute they start buying into the press and all the liberal absolute lies, and that is working together, they're on their way out. Now, Governor Baker, is doing a good job, but if you notice, he's quietly confronting the things that he sees wrong. But the minute that he crosses over and doesn't, quote, work with Democrats, understand me, this does not mean to just go out and go against any Democratic law or any Democratic position. It means, however, to hold on to what got you there and what got him there, just like Scott Brown was middle of the road Democrats. And Republicans will never get that through their head because there's too many liberals now in the Republican Party. And they are there specifically to win, not to do the right thing, not to do what Martin Luther said 500 years ago, use their conscience. Can anyone in good conscience support the out-of-control welfare systems that we have now? Can anyone? EBT cards, bought and sold? Of course there are people that need welfare. That's why it's there. I support welfare. I was always liberally oriented in programs, conservatively oriented when it came to finances. That's what made this country what it is. Watching the dollar. Well, I want to just throw a few things that I jot down that just I can't. I have to vent them. I'll do it on the radio also. I talked with a police officer the other day. Terrific young man. Probably, I don't even know if he's 30. And I said to him, would you explain to me, officer, how can you vote for Democrats today? How can you vote for the position that Democrats have now nationwide in the inner cities, and it's already permeating into other towns? Political correctness, hands off, give the criminal all the time he wants. Jeopardize your own personal safety by having a gun and holding on and getting shot yourself. And here's what's wrong in the country. You know what his answer was? Oh, he said, those Republicans, all they want to do is bust the unions. That's his answer. I said to him, now wait a minute, you're telling me that the potential of losing your own life in the line of duty becomes greater with this now hands-off, stand-down policy, worried about race, worried about illegals. That's more important. If you're shot and killed, your family now doesn't have a father, doesn't have a husband, and doesn't have an income. And you're telling me that your loyalty to the union is more important than that. And that was the end of the discussion. Very cordial. But I ask you that. What is it? Is this where we've come? I have 2 tenants. I rent out a couple of condominiums that I can't sell. The economy's so great, I can't sell them unless I give them away. Excuse me. And I have a wonderful young couple. They work hard. They work in a computer company. Computer company. They have these big jobs. Their boss had a meeting with them. I don't know what the total employees are, but there's quite a few, probably 30, and informed them that they were all going to have to take 1 day off a week for a month or thereabouts. 20% cut. Now, this couple, unfortunately, both works in the same company. So they're now going to take a 20% cut, which adds up basically to their rent to me. I hope I don't have to lose them. But be that as it may, this is going on and has been going on, ladies and gentlemen, in the airline industry, in the travel industry, in the hotel industry, in the restaurant industry, of which I was in for 40 years. The only industry that's safe from it is the government employee unions. Your town, your state, and your federal government. Whenever there's a suggestion that the money isn't there in a budget, the last thing that is ever thought of is to cut back in areas where the salaries are the problem, which is what the problem is. This is where the Democratic Party has captured the whole country, except certain states that now are coming down hard on this. As a former teacher, I keep harping at this. Teachers were never made to make a lot of money. Their job was to love working with kids and get that enjoyment and get benefits, as did all public employees. They got insurance year-round. They got all the holidays to be with their kids. They got every weekend to be with their kids. And they had the summer in which to earn more money. I keep harping on it because it infuriates me that today's teacher considers the idea of working in the summer. Ask any. And this is about parents whose kids are now teachers, protecting their... I don't care what is said. The teaching profession was supposed to be, as was and is, the religious community. There are certain nursing, a lot of areas in which the Peace Corps, the armed services, imagine the armed services tolerating the fact they get a pay cut, they get their pension cut, and this president and these Democrats support illegals coming in and being paid when they get here, such as the Zhlanov or whatever they are boys that blew up the marathon. Heaven forbid you face this absolute chaotic mindset in this country today. I'm the bad person for pointing this out. And you know why? I realize now why you never argue politics or religion, because there are some people who can never admit when they're wrong, and 2, they can never really admit that they're greedy. I don't care how nice they are. There's wonderful people working for the government. There's wonderful people who aren't making a lot of money. But when you look at schools today and you look at the pay and the administrators and you look, again, I'm going to continue because your town budgets are being so negatively affected by schools. Schools. And it isn't about the kids. The results aren't there. I started the show. We're 16th to 19th in the world. 20 years ago, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, did a study that came out with, I think it was a study done by Princeton, if I believe. In fact, I'm almost positive. It showed that they believed that 50% of the graduates of teachers' colleges were incapable of standing in a classroom and maintaining a discipline. 50%. Did you ever read about it? And to this day, as I kept teaching, I never saw the NEA or the MTA or anyone else address that. Never. But they address sick days. This is government unions. And this young police officer has been successfully brainwashed by the Democratic Party, by the biased television reporting, into thinking that his union, that Republicans don't care about law and order. All they want to do is bust you. To hear this young man say this, I got even more depressed about the situation. That's how successful the liberal establishment the leftists have been. They've permeated. 2 or 3 years ago, talking to 3 young girls, I saw them at a coffee shop. Their teachers, I used to teach. What do you do in the summer? Summers? We don't work in the summer. I said, you don't work in the summer? How do you get by? Oh, well, we're making pretty good money. That's out there. And then how about you, mom and dad? You know, your son or daughter comes home, you got to pay $150 for them to take a bus. Not every town. The good kids, the ones that are studying, the ones that are showing up in class, they want to play football, or they want to play baseball, or they want to be in the drama club, or they want to be cheerleaders. You got to pay for that. That's all about the kids, though. So the assistant principal can get a raise. Or the town manager. Of course, the town manager doesn't have anything to do now with the school budget. And you've now allowed the school budget to be 60, 65, 70% of the total town budget without a bit of word said. You know why? Because you haven't got any guts, that's why. You're afraid you'll be accused of not caring about your kids and about everybody else's kids. And you don't make a call to town hall, and you don't raise Cain. And you're retired, and you've lived in the same home like I see on the Cape, but there's a lot of retirees. You're forced to sell your house because the property tax now, 60 or 70% of which is education. It's bigger than your mortgage was. Your husband's died. You're living on his Social Security, even though you had yours. They take away the second Social Security. You know, that's nice. You can come in here illegally, and you can have money given to you. Isn't that nice, Democrats? That's the Democratic Party. So now you have to give up, even though you're in great, health, but financially, you just say, I can't afford the house anymore. And I heard it down in Cape Cod, where I was a town meeting member, I was a businessman, and I heard people say, well, if they can't afford it, just sell and move. Sell and move. Then those same people say, we've got to make it so our young people can afford to buy a house. Well, yeah, you can make it, but as long as you don't take our salaries working in the government and cut them. Take a look at the newspapers whenever there's somebody laid off in the school systems or in the town. It'll be a secretary or a janitor or a cafeteria worker. Take a look at how many times, if ever, there's an assistant to an assistant principal or the dean of students or the dean of women. it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a great profession. I've always considered God gave me one of my greatest gifts in being able to work in the lives of young people for 12 years. But I'll tell you, I'm not proud of where their direction is, and I'm sorry for the good teachers that work hard. But they also now have people retiring earlier for a variety of reasons. Now, this is all fact, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to like it, and those that don't like it probably already, if they watched for 5 minutes, they're not going to watch anymore.
Well, they're still watching.
Oh, I don't care. Yeah. I do care, but it's so very crystal clear. One, you have too many colleges, way too many colleges. The colleges are so prevalent, they have now become areas where they care about, pardon me, fannies in the seats, asses in the seats, we'll say. I would say a good 30% of the college students today have no business being there, nor did they have any business graduating from high school. It's just social promotions. Any teacher worth their salt that's honest will say that. And the kids in the classroom know it. The kids know that the good kids that study, fortunately, they have great parental guidance and they have self-motivational skills. They don't want to avoid learning. They don't want to be goofing off in class. They want to learn. And it doesn't matter that they see Sally, who misses 2 days a week and gets a B, and graduates, even though she's been out of school more than she's been in. They see Harry that played football, and he graduates even though he never got grades. Then he signs to go to a college. Well, that's a little different. Athletics, we all know what's going on there. But what is going on is, in order to keep feeding the colleges, liberals understood, college professors understood, and the Democratic leftists understood. One, we want control of the schools so that we can then control the voters, which they've pretty near accomplished. Now, this is a former Democrat for 30 years. A JFK Democrat, way before this devastation occurred. So what they do now is, of course, to fill these unnecessary colleges, they've had to brainwash parents into thinking that they're less than a good parent if their Nancy or Tommy or Billy or Mary doesn't go to college. Even though the kid doesn't want to go, but more importantly, even though the kid doesn't have the academic ability to go. Doesn't matter. What we've got to do is lay guilt on the parents whose kids don't go to college. Not only that, lay guilt on kids who don't want to go to college. I was at a golf course not long ago, and I met a beautiful bartender girl there, young girl, high school. Beautiful girl, wonderful personality, graduating this year. So I said, well, you going on to college? No, I'm not. I said, oh, you're not. Why? I don't want to. I've got 2 or 3 other things I'd like to do. I'd like to be in the hospitality business, and I don't need college for that. Really? I said, wow, you are courageous. Now, how much flack are you getting? Oh, I get it all the time. See? And, of course, the problem now goes into the parents, too, who love being down at the golf club, being at the yacht club, and all this, and Oh, where's Nancy going, after she's graduated? Oh, she's in Dartmouth, and does she like it? Oh, she loves it. Everything's going great. It's a social thing, you see. So it's all about self-centeredness, Now, our parents, Kenny, my father wanted me to go to college, but it isn't like parents today. It wasn't an extension of him or of my mother. Now, neither one of them had college degrees, so some could say, well, that's why. But that's not really why. It's just like why parents today, instead of supporting the schools, if their kid gets in trouble, one, we always say, I used to beg a teacher if I was, babbling in class or did something. I'm going to call your father. I'd say, please, I'll do anything. I'll stay after school. Because I knew my father, whether I was right or wrong, my father that was it. Turn in your uniform. Whatever sport I was playing, that was it. Today, kid can't wait to tell mommy and daddy that they got in trouble at school, and mommy and daddy can't wait to go to the school and raise hell with the teacher, who, by the way, usually doesn't get the support of the principal, although I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but I saw discipline. That's the other thing, discipline. But why would it be any different? We've got parents now who went through the 60s, the hippieville, free sex, free this, free that, don't serve your country, don't do anything, and now they're the ones that are, they've got kids of their own, and they're making the decisions. That's what we've got in the White House. Now, I don't suggest that 60s didn't need, that Vietnam War was a tremendous mistake. But the way our men and women that served in that war were treated was absolutely abominable, and shows what's going on in places like Ferguson and now Baltimore. I want to ask you a question about this racial situation today. Call me whatever you want, it's fine with me, but this country was founded on a majority rule. It was also founded on equal rights. That's what we have the Bill of Rights for. We have the preamble to the Constitution. Now, the problem and the best ammunition the left has and liberals have, and unfortunately college professors, this is what they pounce on in front of our young people. There was a hypocrisy in the Founding Fathers in saying all men are created equal, because slaves were not treated equal. The black race was not treated equal, nor were the Chinese. Nor were the Irish when they first came here, nor the Italian. People tend to forget that. However, there was a difference, and the difference basically was around the different color of a person's skin. Unfortunate for us now, today, that is the reason, the deep reason, that some of this nonsense is being forgiven or allowed. But what I'm getting at is we have people going to school now. They don't know their tables. They can't spell. They need a computer. They need their cell phone in many cases. We have brilliant kids, but a lot of them still depend on technology, not their brain, which is perfectly capable, as it was of all of us, to learn, to memorize. All right, so now let's get back to the Constitution and get back to what made this country great. And let's take a group of 100 people for anything. I don't care if it's to run a school, to run a club, to run a business, to run a town. 13 of those people make the rules. How would you feel about that? And then let's add 10 to it. Multiply. You have a group of 1,000 people. 130 make the rules. Let's multiply it by another 10. 10,000 people, a group or any religion, a club, a business, a philosophy. Out of the 10,000, 1,300 make the rules. That's what we have now in the news media. That's what we have. The news media, the politicians are allowing 13% of the population, 13.6 is the black population. Now, I understand that's not the situation in the inner cities. I understand that. But I am talking about the laws and the attitudes apply throughout a state, throughout a city, throughout a country. Now, maybe you find no problem with that, but it is a very slippery slope. And that's, where we are heading now. And the only way it can be reversed is if the majority, including members of the black population, the Chinese population, they don't seem to be having the problems that we have in our own native culture. Getting back to schools, why is it that the Founding Fathers, and here in Plymouth, the Pilgrims, are minimized? And in many cases, we're talking now at the collegiate level, in many cases, they are criticized by professors who start the history of America in the Civil War period. Tell me how that is right. I keep saying it. We no longer have a George Washington birthday holiday, nor an Abraham Lincoln holiday. We have an all presidents, and that again makes everything okay. We have a Martin Luther King Day, which is fine with me. But I'm trying to point out that even in that, here the man that was the responsible, the one individual that this country, the United States of America, there's only one man that we could not do without, and it was George Washington. And every historian, regardless of their politics, admits to that. That's well read. And yet, the left continues to demean our heroes. That's the best thing they do now. Thomas Jefferson, one of the most brilliant men the country's ever seen, because he owned slaves, that's how the professors, the liberal professors that control our college classrooms, portray him. And our young people swallow it. So now when we bring up the things that I do about Thomas Jefferson that are coming true now, they poo-poo him in the classroom. See, they've already set the stage. Let me find Tom Jefferson.
Donnie?
Yes, go ahead.
When you get a minute, I'd like to go back to when you and I were going to school.
When you and I, you mean back in the 1700s?
And, well, actually, it was like before dirt was invented. But
you go ahead. Whatever you want.
Is it okay to do it now?
Of course.
Are you looking for that?
I've got it. Well, I've got them right here.
You did find it.
Hold that thought, though, okay? All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I just read you, ladies and gentlemen, what Martin Luther said. The man Martin Luther King's father, a minister, named him after. He didn't invent that name. He named him after that courageous man of God who confronted the wrongs in the church at the time. That's why Martin Luther King was named Martin Luther King, who said, conscience. What conscience do we have anymore? Just a couple of more, Kenny, before we get to this. Okay. When we get piled upon one another in large cities, as in Europe, now remember what I told you, why the Pilgrims left, why the colonists came, was to get away from the corruption and disease of Europe. When we get piled upon one another in large cities, as in Europe, we shall become as corrupt as Europe. The democracy will cease to exist when you take away from those who are willing to work and give to those who would not. Over 200 years ago. It is incumbent on every generation to pay its own debts as it goes, a principle which, if acted on, would save 1/2 of the wars in the world. I predict future happiness for Americans if they can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people under the pretense of taking care of them. I mean, if you're listening, you just... My reading of history, again, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. What do we study in school anymore? Do we tell the kids about the 7 deadly sins? Do we tell them about the 10 commandments? Oh, no, you can't do that. That's too much. That's religious. Yeah, but wait, is it about people? Was it successful with other successful countries? Yes, it was, but that doesn't matter to these people, these agnostic atheists in the left. My reading of history convinces me that most bad government results from too much government. Let's get back to John F. Kennedy, who held a dinner, my president, who held a dinner in the White House for a group of the brightest minds in the nation at that time. I know we also had musician Pablo Casals, he had Galbraith, he had a bunch of different people. Anyway, so he made this statement, quote, "This is perhaps the assembly of the most intelligence ever to gather at one time in the White House, with the exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone." Now that's how high Thomas Jefferson's intelligence and history was held, the esteem John Kennedy held him in. But remember, John Kennedy was sick more of his life than not. He had Addison's disease, and of course there's been all sorts of things written that was hidden and all of this from the public. The point was the man was sick. He had a bad back, but he also had a blood disorder, which affected his youth. He was in the hospitals during his early years more days than he was out. So he read, and he read, and he read. He was never a great student in terms of tests, but he was tremendously intelligent. He also went to Europe, not once, not twice, 3 different times. Was in Germany pre-World War II, saw what was happening. Was in Russia, saw what was happening. Spent a lot of time in Britain, saw what was happening. When he came to the White House, he knew what war was like. Today, we don't require any background. We've had more Democratic and presidents that have never done squat. In some cases, they've gone against their own country. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And finally, this is the one that I always star. Think of your towns, your cities, your states, and the federal government, your nation. When you hear this from Thomas Jefferson, to compel a man to subsidize with his taxes the propagation of ideas which he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical. Now, what we do is we have people passing laws that involve Christian morals especially, and they're getting away with it. Why? Because too many people are voting their party. Too many people, like that nice young police officer, are more concerned about protecting their union and their automatic salary increases than they are about protecting the values and safety of this country. Aren't you amazed at that comment by that police officer?
I couldn't believe it when you told me.
And I know he speaks honestly, and I know he's not alone.
I hope he watches your show.
Well, no. But anyway, go ahead now. Thank you for giving me a break.
Now you get a chance to get a drink of water. I want to relive a little bit of the past.
Schools.
About schools, correct.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I went to Weymouth, and where did you go?
I went to James Timothy Junior High School in Roxbury.
Oh, Timothy's.
And now it's become a magnet school where they send all of the special, smart people.
Oh,
and
you set the standards, Kenny.
Well, I hope I made them, but I don't think I did. And then from there, I went to Boston Trade School, and that was what I wanted to talk about. Was when we went to school, we had classes that we would have to go to, and there was always a guidance counselor. And always comes to mind is the guidance counselor would try to encourage you to pick a course in life and find it and go pursue that. And it was supposed to help you to select a high school, and then beyond that, if your family could afford it, go to a college. This guidance counselor that I had, and I was in the 8th grade, and I was getting ready to make the change over to the high school, he was encouraging me to go into a trade.
Yep.
Tradesmen are what are needed because this country, a lot of people went to war, and a lot of the tradespeople didn't come back from the war. They needed more tradespeople. When I look back at that and I think about that, what's to say that that wasn't equal to what you just said a few minutes ago about a police officer? Could it be that that person was trying to point me into a direction that I really wasn't cut out to go in, when I really wanted to go to college for engineering?
Mm-hmm.
And get talked out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you're in the inner city, you count on people to give you the right education, to give you the right instruction, to help shape your life.
Direction, yeah.
The right direction.
Yeah.
And I feel as though there were a lot of us, and I'm not singing woe is me, but I feel as though there were a lot of us in that time period that got the short end because we were directed toward a hands-on type thing, and then they would go and take the AAA students who were getting all A's and try to work something out to get them directed at colleges, Harvard, Boston College.
Yeah.
It's just...
Okay, now just as that's an excellent...
That's my point.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. However, now just as the devil's advocate, how were your grades in high school?
I was an average student.
Yeah, okay. Now, what about math and, the sciences? How were you?
I was great with math. I loved physics. I loved that class. I loved algebra.
Yeah.
The subject I really was bad in was geometry.
Yeah.
I really had a problem with that.
I did too. And I was
And-
good in math, but I wasn't good in math.
And I had a
in that
teacher.
geometry.
I keep trying to talk to the teacher. I'm having a problem. And he wouldn't give me any help.
Well, that's the individual teacher, but getting back to your point, which is well taken, as long as it isn't misinterpreted as,
hope not.
see, they directed everybody to trade schools, and you're criticizing me, criticizing now they direct everybody to college. Well, in both cases, it's wrong. But the thing that bothers me mostly is the fact that aptitude tests used to mean something.
Yes.
Now they have all sorts of little deviations that can. And the big problem still, Kenny, is there was 2 studies quite some time ago. I'm trying to remember. Again, I read the Wall Street Journal, but I also read. I don't read the Globe. I can't stand it. But I read some trade magazines. And there have been 2 very detailed studies done not too long ago that stress the need for more trade schools. But the demand isn't there because of what I've just said, because it's become politically correct to have your child go to college, even if they fail. Now, here's another great thing, ladies and gentlemen. I should cut out, I have these files with stuff that I've done for over 20 years on the radio. There was again a study that was muffled and it was picked up by, I think, the Wall Street Journal, about how many people in college sabotage their college experience because they can't cut the mustard. Girls, unfortunately, this is going to sound sexist, too bad. But it's still boys, too, but there were much more girls. Got pregnant because they didn't have the heart to tell their father, who's paid for their college 2 years, that they didn't want to stay in college. And they got pregnant with their boyfriend, usually. I'm not saying they just went out and got pregnant by anyone, but I'm saying psychologically it was a legitimate way for them to not have to continue college. Now that's pretty sad, because that was a prodding from parents why they were into college in the first place. I used to ask parents, I'd ask how their kids were doing in college, and they'd say, oh, they're doing great. I said, have you asked them? Well, no, I know they're doing. They don't ask, do you really like it? How many parents sit down and say, do you really want to go to school? Do you really feel? Now, again, this sounds like sacrilege in America to say, well, some shouldn't go to college. But it's proof of the tremendous success. And yet, again, do you know how many graduates today from colleges, ladies and gentlemen, can't get jobs? But somebody that's a carpenter, a plumber, an electrician is doing just fine. Somebody that's running their own landscaping business and enjoying it. And it's only this elitist college community culture that makes these young people feel less than because they didn't or aren't college grads or didn't go to college. It's so nice that people forget. Bill Gates dropped out. I don't think Steve Jobs had a college degree. Henry Ford never went to college. I mean, it goes on. The Dodge boys, the Andrew Carnegie. I mean, yes, those were different times, but they seem to do just fine without college. I'm not saying not to go to college, but I am saying it's not the be-all and end-all. And the public relations of college education today is just crazy. I happen to know people that you've got to really work at flunking out of Harvard, because Harvard will give you tutors, provide you with tutors. They don't want dropouts. They don't want changes. They want whoever gets in there to graduate. Now, I'm not talking in the high sciences and all. In fact, I remember reading one time that like Silber and others in that they called the School of Education in most colleges a joke. Imagine. The School of Education, that department that was training Harvard and BU. I went to BU for my master's, but I knew two Harvard guys. One had flunked out of UMass. He was an athlete, and he got into Harvard on a trial basis. He graduated from Harvard, and he was a lousy student.
Real good family friend for 30-some-odd years is a professor at BU. Stories would, if I had hair, it would curl it.
Yep.
People whose parents have paid their full tuition in advance.
Yep.
And they're spending their time in the bar rooms in Boylston Street and drinking, and then they can't get their core study done, and they have to repeat the year. I can't believe the stories and all these.
What do you mean you can? You're not listening to Don McKeag like a lot of people. Do you understand? Education today is the biggest single racket other than government, and that's why we're running out of time. That's why education is in the tank for the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, but it is the truth.
I don't believe he's a Democrat, but it's just surprising. I heard some stories over the weekend. It was just unbelievable. But anyways, don't forget to let everybody know that they can watch the show on YouTube. Yes,
we're on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube can watch YouTube.
Don McKeag TV Show on YouTube.
Yeah.
They can tune you in on Saturdays to the fastest 2 hours on radio.
On radio, 95.1 FM. And we are on Mondays, Thursdays, and Sunday, correct?
Correct.
Sunday at 6, Thursday at 9 in the morning, and Monday at 11 at night.
And don't call that phone number on any of those 3 days.
Those are all reruns. Kenny, what I wanted to do is you just gave me my favorite quote. Albert Einstein left Nazi Germany because he was Jewish, of course, and escaped being murdered to come to this country to teach at Princeton College at the time, now Princeton University. When he was interviewed by the New York Times and by the press in general, they asked him his opinion of the college community that he was joining. And he said, well, in my experience prior to coming here, I found the communities to be a quaint, acrimonious community of puny demigods on stilts. I rest my case. When you have college professors wantonly standing in front of young people, I don't mean all of them, bad-mouthing the United States of America and bad-mouthing corporate America, when, like Elizabeth Warren, they're paid $360,000 out of the corporate fund that Harvard has. It doesn't get any worse than that. But anyway, thanks for joining me. God bless. It's the Don McKeag Show, and I'm Don McKeag signing off. Have a great weekend coming up. Stay with us. Bye.